Commander Oss stood on the bridge of the Valiant Crest and watched the stars pass by. His scales were dark green, and they caught the light from the control panels. He had served in the Galactic Coalition for 20 years. In that time, he had learned one important truth. Good soldiers stayed alive by being smart, not brave. The war against the Swarm had been going on for 5 years now. The Swarm was a race of insect-like creatures that moved as one mind. They attacked without warning and consumed everything in their path. The Coalition had lost hundreds of ships and thousands of soldiers. Every species in the galaxy had learned to fight carefully, to retreat when the numbers were bad, to save their forces for battles they could win. "Commander, the transport has arrived," said his second officer, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms. Oss nodded. "Send them to the loading bay. I will meet them there." He walked through the corridors of his ship. The Valiant Crest was a good vessel, strong and well-armed. His crew of 47 came from 6 different species. They all knew how to follow orders and fight smart. That was why they were still alive. When he reached the loading bay, 4 figures stood waiting. They wore the standard Coalition uniform, but Oss could tell immediately they were human. He had heard about humans. They had joined the Coalition 3 years ago, bringing their small fleet of ships and their strange ideas about warfare. The first human stepped forward and saluted. He was shorter than Oss, with black hair and dark eyes. "Corporal, reporting for duty, sir." "Welcome aboard," Oss said. His voice came out as a low hiss, the way his species always sounded. "Introduce your team." Gestured to the others. "This is Private, our medic." A young woman with her hair tied back nodded. "Private, our engineer." A stocky man with broad shoulders gave a quick salute. "And Private Hay, our scout." The last woman was thin and moved like she was ready to run at any moment. "You will be assigned to 3rd Watch," Oss said. "My officer will show you to your quarters. We patrol the border sectors. The Swarm has been active in this region. Follow orders exactly and you will survive. Understood?" "Yes, sir," all 4 humans said together. Oss watched them leave. There was something about the way they moved that bothered him. They seemed too relaxed, too confident. In his experience, soldiers who felt no fear usually died quickly. Over the next 3 days, Oss observed the humans carefully. They did their work well enough, fixed a problem with the engine that had troubled the regular engineer for weeks. Hay completed her patrol routes faster than any scout he had seen, organized the medical bay with impressive efficiency, and asked too many questions. "Why did we retreat from that asteroid field yesterday?" asked during a briefing. "Because there were 3 Swarm scouts there," Oss explained. "We had 2 fighters. The acceptable ratio for engagement is 2-to-1 in our favor. 3-to-2 means unnecessary risk. But we had cover from the asteroids," said. "We could have used that." "We followed protocol," Oss said firmly. "Protocol keeps soldiers alive." He saw something flash in his eyes. Disagreement, maybe, or frustration, but the human said nothing more. On the 4th day, the alarm sounded. Oss rushed to the bridge. "Report." "Swarm contact, Commander. 6 scouts approaching fast." Oss looked at the screens. His ship had 4 fighters ready to launch. 6 against 4. Not good odds, but not terrible either. "Launch all fighters. Engage at maximum range. Target the scouts on the edges first. If they push hard, we retreat." The battle lasted 10 minutes. His fighters destroyed 2 Swarm scouts and damaged a 3rd. But when the enemy began to surround them, Oss gave the order. "All fighters return to ship. We are leaving." "But sir, we can finish them," one of his pilots said. "No, we have done acceptable damage. Return now." The Valiant Crest jumped away to safety. Oss checked the reports. No casualties, minimal damage to 1 fighter, a successful engagement by any measure. But when he walked past the human quarters later, he heard angry voices inside. "We had them," that was his voice. 3 more minutes and we could have cleared that sector." "Protocol says retreat when outnumbered," replied. The commander followed the rules. The rules are designed to keep people alive, not to win wars, said. Oz almost entered to correct them, but he decided to let it go. They would learn. All young soldiers thought they knew better at first. 2 days later, everything changed. The distress signal came in the middle of the night watch. Commander, urgent message from Outpost 47. They are under attack. Oz came to the bridge immediately. Details. Mining colony, 300 civilians. Swarm forces landed 20 minutes ago. Heavy numbers. Set course immediately, Oz ordered. Battle alert, all crew to stations. The Valiant Crest moved at full speed. It took 2 hours to reach the outpost. When they arrived, the scans showed a terrible situation. Commander, I count at least 40 swarm warriors on the surface. They are digging into the underground shelters where the civilians are hiding. Oz studied the numbers carefully. His ship had 37 combat personnel, 40 to 37, and the enemy held the ground position. The odds were very bad. Send the scan data to Coalition Command, he said. Request immediate reinforcement. They waited. 10 minutes passed. Then the reply came. Coalition Command orders us to maintain orbit and monitor, his communications officer said. Reinforcements will arrive in 6 hours. We are not to engage without tactical advantage. Oz looked at the screen. On the surface of the planet, he could see the heat signatures of swarm warriors tearing into the ground. Each minute, they got closer to the civilians below. 6 hours. The civilians did not have 6 hours. But orders were orders, and the numbers were the numbers. To land his forces would be to sacrifice them for civilians who might already be dead. It was the logical choice, the only choice. Maintain orbit, he said quietly. Behind him, he heard movement. He turned to see the 4 humans standing there, stepped forward, his face hard. Commander, request permission to land a rescue team. Oz said, the odds are unacceptable. Those are 300 people down there, sir. And we have 37 up here. I will not sacrifice my crew on a mission that will fail. Let us try, insisted. Just the 4 of us, give us a shuttle. Oz felt his scales tighten with irritation. Corporal, you will return to your post. That is an order. For a long moment, stared at him. Then the human saluted and walked away with his team. Oz turned back to the screen. He had made the right choice, the only choice a good commander could make. But as he watched the swarm dig deeper into the ground, he felt something he had not felt in a long time. He felt like a coward. The alarm started screaming 30 minutes later. Commander, Shuttle Bay 3 has been breached. Oz spun around. What, by whom? The humans, sir. They have taken Shuttle 7 and are launching without authorization. Oz ran to the shuttle bay, but he was too late. Through the window, he saw the small shuttle dropping away from his ship, heading straight down toward the planet's surface. He slammed his hand against the communication panel. Corporal, return to the ship immediately. That is a direct order. The radio crackled. His voice came through calm and clear. Sorry, Commander, we can't do that. You are violating orders. You will be court-martialed. Yes, sir, probably. There was a pause, but those people down there won't be dead. The signal cut off. Oz watched the shuttle disappear into the atmosphere. His second officer stood beside him, all 4 arms crossed. Should we send fighters to force them back? Oz almost said yes, but something stopped him. No, let them go. When they die, let it be on their own heads. But he did not leave the bridge. He stayed there, watching the screens. Against his better judgment, he wanted to see what happened next. The shuttle landed 3 kilometers from the main colony buildings. Through the satellite feed, Oz could see the 4 humans exit quickly. They moved toward the colony in a pattern he did not recognize. It was not standard coalition formation. They spread out wide, using every rock and hill for cover. Scan shows 42 swarm warriors, his tactical officer reported. They are digging into Shelter Complex 1, 20 meters from breakthrough. Oz watched the 4 humans approach, 4 against 42. It was insane, it was suicide. Then the first explosion happened. A massive blast threw 6 swarm warriors into the air. The creatures screamed and scattered. Oz saw running from behind a ridge, something in his hands. The human engineer said explosive charges, his tactical officer said, sounding surprised. He is using the mining equipment. The swarm turned toward the explosion, moving away from the shelter entrance. That was when and Hay made their move. They ran straight for the shelter entrance, firing their weapons at any swarm that got close. Impossible, Oz whispered. They are moving too fast. They are right in the enemy's center. But that was exactly their plan. While the swarm was confused by the explosion, the 3 humans reached the shelter door, began cutting through the sealed entrance with a plasma torch while Hay held off the approaching enemies. Another explosion rocked the area, then another, was running across the battlefield, setting off charges and drawing the swarm's attention. The creatures chased him, trying to surround him. The engineer is alone, Oz said. They have separated too far, he will be killed. But was fast. He dodged between rocks, rolled under attacks and kept moving. Every time the swarm got close, another explosion sent them flying backward. The shelter door opened. Civilians started pouring out, screaming and crying, grabbed the first ones and pointed them toward the shuttle. Hay provided cover fire, shooting with impressive accuracy, stood at the door, pulling people out faster. Civilian count at 50, the tactical officer said. 70, 90. More swarm warriors noticed what was happening. They turned away from and rushed toward the shelter. There were too many of them. Saw them coming. He said something into his radio that Oz could not hear. Then he stepped away from the shelter entrance and walked straight toward the charging swarm. What is he doing? Oz demanded. Raised his weapon and started firing. He was one person against 20 swarm warriors. He could not possibly win. But he was not trying to win. He was trying to buy time. The swarm hit him like a wave. Oz thought he was dead, but then rolled away, still shooting, still moving. He was fast, faster than Oz had thought possible. He led the swarm away from the shelter, away from the civilians into an open area. That was when appeared behind the swarm group. He had circled around. In his hands was the largest mining charge Oz had ever seen. Did not run away. He stood there, right in the middle of the enemy. He raised the charge above his head. No, Oz said, he cannot. The explosion was enormous. It showed bright white on all the screens. When the light faded, 15 swarm warriors were gone, and so was. The bridge was silent. Even the tactical officer said nothing. On the screen got to his feet. He was wounded, his uniform torn and bloody, but he kept moving. He limped back toward the shelter where Hay were still evacuating civilians. Civilian count at 150, someone reported quietly. 180. The remaining swarm warriors regrouped. They charged at the shelter together, all of them at once, and Hay fired until their weapons overheated, joined them though he could barely stand. It was not enough. The swarm would reach them in seconds. Oz made his decision without thinking. Launch all fighters, ground assault pattern, target those swarm warriors now. Sir, his second officer looked shocked. Do it now. 4 coalition fighters screamed out of the shuttle bay and down into the atmosphere. They opened fire on the swarm from above. The enemy scattered, confused by the new attack. 210 civilians evacuated, the tactical officer said. 230. The fighters made another pass, then another. The swarm warriors tried to fight back, but they were being torn apart from above and from the ground. Last civilian group at shuttle, the tactical officer reported. 287 total. Os watched and Hay run toward their shuttle with the final group of civilians. The fighters provided cover, destroying the last few swarm warriors. The small shuttle lifted off, overloaded with people struggling to climb. "Fighter group, escort that shuttle," Os ordered. "Make sure nothing touches it." The shuttle made it to the Valiant Crest. The loading bay was chaos. Civilians were crying, thanking everyone, hugging the crew members. Medical teams rushed to help the wounded. Os walked through the crowd. He found the three humans sitting against a wall, was bandaging injuries. Hay sat with her eyes closed, exhausted beyond words. They looked up when they saw him. They did not speak. They probably expected him to arrest them. Os looked at them for a long moment. Then he said, "Where is Private?" His face went hard. "He stayed behind. He saved us all." "I see." Os was quiet. Then he said, "You disobeyed direct orders." "Yes, sir." "You stole a shuttle." "Yes, sir." "You risked your lives on a mission with no chance of success." Looked him in the eye. "There were 300 people down there, sir. Someone had to try." Os wanted to be angry. He wanted to tell them they were foolish and reckless, that they broke every rule of proper military conduct, that Private died because they could not accept logic and numbers. But he could not say any of those things, because 287 civilians were alive now. 287 people who would have died if these humans had followed his orders. "How many did you lose?" Os asked quietly. 13 said. Her voice was tired and sad. 13 civilians were already dead when we reached them. We were too late. Too late. They had saved 287 people, and they felt terrible about the 13 they could not save. Os turned and walked away. He went to his office and sat in the dark for a long time. He thought about numbers and odds and proper military protocol. He thought about acceptable losses and tactical advantages. Then he thought about standing in the middle of enemies with a bomb in his hands, buying time for people he had never met. That night, Os began writing his report. He did not mention the stolen shuttle or the violated orders. Instead, he wrote about 4 soldiers who showed extraordinary courage. He recommended them all for medals of valor, even the one who would never receive it. 2 weeks passed before Os saw the humans again. They had been called to Coalition headquarters for the medal ceremony. Os attended as their commanding officer. Fleet Admiral Al was a member of the avian species, with golden feathers and sharp eyes that saw everything. She presented the medals personally. When she placed the medal around his neck, she said, "The Coalition thanks you for your extraordinary service." Just nodded. He looked uncomfortable in his dress uniform, and Hay stood beside him, equally uncomfortable. There was an empty space next to them where should have been standing. After the ceremony, the Admiral called Os to her office. "Your report was interesting, Commander," she said. She walked to her window and looked out at the fleet assembled below. 3 human soldiers violated direct orders and somehow saved nearly 300 civilians. "Yes, Admiral." "Do you know what that means?" She turned to face him. "It means we have been fighting this war wrong." Os felt his scales tighten. "Admiral, I have been reading reports from other ships. Human soldiers are doing similar things across the fleet, taking risks we would never take, winning battles we would have avoided, and they are succeeding." She sat down at her desk. "I am assigning more human units to every ship, yours included." Os thought about this. "Admiral, with respect, humans are reckless. They do not understand proper tactics." "No, Commander, they understand something we forgot." The Admiral's eyes were hard. "They understand that some things are worth dying for." The next day, 20 new human Marines arrived on the Valiant Crest. Leading them was Lieutenant Jin, a young man with sharp eyes and a calm manner. His second was Sergeant Na, a tough woman with short hair and a heavy weapons specialist badge on her uniform. Jin saluted Os. "Lieutenant Jin reporting, sir. I heard you had some trouble here." "You could say that," Os replied. "Well, we are here to make sure you have more trouble." Jin smiled slightly. "The good kind." Os assigned them quarters and positions. Then, alone in his office, he did something he had never done before. He began studying human history. The files were incredible. Humans had fought wars on their planet for thousands of years. He read about battles where small groups held against massive armies, about soldiers who refused to retreat even when all hope was lost, about people who sacrificed everything for their friends. There were phrases in the human military files that struck him deeply. "No man left behind. Death before dishonor. We fight not because we hate what is in front of us, but because we love what is behind us." These were not just words. This was how humans thought about war. Os looked at the tactical data differently now. What if acceptable losses were not acceptable? What if preservation of forces mattered less than preservation of principles? He did not have long to think about it. 3 days later, the fleet received its orders. The coalition was launching a major offensive. 50 ships would assault the swarm staging World 7. It was the biggest attack the coalition had attempted in 2 years. If they succeeded, they could push the swarm back by months, maybe years. Os brought his officers together for the briefing. Jin and were there, along with Na and the rest of the command staff. "We will be part of the Center Assault Group," Os explained, showing the tactical map. 20 ships will hit the planet's defensive stations while the rest engage their fleet in orbit. "What about ground forces?" Jin asked. "Minimal. The goal is to destroy their shipyards and supply centers from orbit. We avoid ground combat." Jin and exchanged looks. Os saw it and felt irritated. "Do you have a concern, Lieutenant?" "No, sir," Jin said. "Just thinking that if we are hitting their main base, ground assault might be more effective." "Too risky," Os said. "Standard doctrine is orbital bombardment." "Standard doctrine," muttered quietly. Os let it go. The fleet moved out the next day. 50 ships, the largest force the coalition had gathered in months. Everyone was confident. The plan was solid. The numbers favored them. They arrived at 7 and began their assault. The swarm defenses were strong, but the coalition fleet broke through. Os commanded his section of the attack, watching his screens as their weapons destroyed swarm stations one after another. "This is going well," his second officer said. "Better than expected." Os agreed. Everything was proceeding according to plan. The swarm was falling back. Victory seemed certain. Then the trap sprung. Swarm reinforcements jumped in from 3 directions at once. Dozens of ships appeared on the sensors. They had been hiding, waiting for the coalition fleet to commit. "Admiral's ship is under heavy fire," someone shouted. "The center is collapsing." Os watched in horror as 3 coalition ships exploded in quick succession. The formation was breaking apart. Ships scattered in all directions, trying to avoid the sudden, overwhelming enemy force. "All ships retreat immediately," the admiral's voice came through, strained and urgent. "This is a general withdrawal. Repeat, general withdrawal." The fleet began pulling back. Os ordered his ship to reverse course. Around him, coalition vessels were fleeing at maximum speed. "Commander," his tactical officer said, "the Morning Star has been hit badly. They have lost engines." On his screen, Os saw the ship. It was dead in space, unable to move. Swarm ships were closing in on it. "How many crew aboard?" 400, sir." 400 people. Os did the calculation instantly. To rescue them would require ships to stop and hold position while the Morning Star evacuated. It would mean exposure to swarm fire. It would mean losses. The admiral's voice came through again. "All ships continue retreat. Do not stop for disabled vessels. Repeat, do not stop." It was the right order, the logical order. Stopping would cost more lives than it saved. The Admiral was thinking clearly despite the chaos. As opened his mouth to confirm the order. "Sir," Jin said quietly. He had moved to stand beside As. "We can reach them." "No," As said, "we cannot." "We can try." "Lieutenant, you saw what happened to the 3 ships that stayed too long. We will die with them." Jin looked at the screen where the morning star drifted helplessly. "So we leave them." "Yes, we follow orders." Jin nodded slowly. Then he turned to his Marines. "All human units prepare for shuttle launch. We are going to get our people." "Belay that order," As snapped. "Lieutenant, return to your post." But Jin was not looking at him anymore. He was talking into his communicator, speaking to the other human units across the fleet. As heard responses coming back. Human Marines from 12 different ships, all volunteering to join the rescue. "They are going to do it anyway," said. He was smiling slightly. "With or without permission." As looked at the humans gathered on his bridge, 23 of them. They were all watching him, waiting. He thought about, standing in the middle of enemies. He thought about 287 civilians who were alive because someone chose to try. He thought about what bravery really meant. "All crew battle stations," As said quietly. His second officer turned to stare at him. "We are going back for the morning star." "Sir." "You heard me. Turn this ship around." The Valiant Crest reversed course, heading back into the battle zone while the rest of the fleet fled. On his communications panel, As saw something incredible happening. Other ships were turning around too. A cruiser, 2 avian destroyers, an entire squadron of fighters, captains from different species, all making the same impossible choice. Jin walked up beside As and saluted. "Thank you, sir." "Do not thank me yet," As said. "We may all die for this." "Yes, sir," Jin replied, "but at least we will die trying." 15 coalition ships broke formation and charged back toward the morning star. Behind them, the swarm fleet gave chase. The battle was far from over, but for the first time in his life, As was not thinking about the numbers. He was thinking about 400 people who deserved someone to try. The Valiant Crest raced toward the morning star with 14 other ships following. Behind them, 30 swarm vessels were closing fast. The numbers were terrible. As had made decisions based on numbers his entire career. Now he was ignoring them completely. "Distance to target 2 minutes, his tactical officer reported. His voice was calm, but As could see his hands shaking. "All ships defensive formation around the morning star," As commanded. "Cover them while they evacuate." The 15 coalition ships spread out in a protective circle. The morning star drifted in the center, helpless and dark except for emergency lights. Swarm fighters were already attacking it, firing on the hull. "Launch all shuttles," Jin ordered. "First wave go now." Human Marines poured into shuttles from every ship in the rescue group. Sergeant Na led her squad from the Valiant Crest, her heavy weapons slung over her shoulder. "We are going in fast," she told her team. "Get as many people out as you can, as fast as you can." The shuttles dropped away and flew straight for the morning star. Swarm fighters tried to intercept them, but coalition ships provided cover fire. Explosions lit up the space around them. As watched the first shuttles reach the morning star. They attached to the hull at the docking ports. On his screen, he could see the heat signatures of people moving inside the damaged ship, heading for evacuation points. "Swarm main fleet arriving in 90 seconds, his tactical officer said. 90 seconds, it was not enough time. "All ships hold this position," As ordered. "Whatever comes, we hold." Na's shuttle entered the morning star through a damaged airlock. Inside, the ship was a nightmare. Fires burned in some sections. Others were open to space. Bodies floated in the corridors, crew members who had not made it to sealed areas. "Medical bays first," Na shouted to her team. "Anyone who can move, send them to the shuttles. Anyone who cannot move, we carry them. They found 60 people huddled in Medical Bay 2. The doctor in charge was trying to treat wounded with limited supplies. When she saw the Marines, she almost cried. "We thought no one was coming," the doctor said. She was like us, her scales pale with stress. "We are here now," Na told her. "Get your people moving." They formed a chain, passing wounded soldiers from hand to hand, moving them toward the evacuation points. Na stayed at the rear, her weapon ready. She could hear sounds deeper in the ship, scratching, clicking. The swarm had boarded. On the Valiant Crest's bridge, Os was fighting his own battle. The swarm fleet had arrived. His ship shook from weapons fire. Shields were holding, but they would not last long. "Commander, the Steadfast has lost shields," someone reported. "They are taking heavy damage." Os watched as the cruiser fought on despite its wounds. Its captain was someone he knew, a careful officer who always followed protocol. Now that captain was staying in position, protecting the rescue operation, even as his ship burned. "Send our fighters to cover the Steadfast," Os ordered. Inside the Morning Star, Na and her team reached the engine room. They found 40 engineers trapped there, unable to escape because debris blocked the main corridor. "Stand back," Na said. She aimed her heavy weapon at the debris and fired. The blast cleared a path, though it also tore a hole in the outer hull. Air began rushing out. "Go, go, go," Na shouted. The engineers ran through the gap, heading for the shuttles. Na held position, firing at approaching swarm warriors. She could see them in the darkness, moving fast. Her weapon clicked empty. She dropped it and pulled out her sidearm. 3 shots, 4, 5. The swarm kept coming. "Sergeant Na, your shuttle is full. You need to leave now." Jin's voice came through her radio. "Not yet," Na replied. "Still have people here." She reloaded and kept firing. Behind her, the last engineers were climbing into the shuttle. She could hear the pilot shouting at her to hurry. A swarm warrior burst from a side corridor. Na shot it, but 2 more followed. She backed up toward the shuttle, firing with each step. The shuttle door was closing. Na turned and ran, diving through the gap as it sealed. They launched immediately, swarm warriors crawling on the hull, trying to break in. Coalition fighters blasted them off. The shuttle made it back to the Valiant Crest. "Commander, we have evacuated 300 people," Jin reported. 100 still aboard. "How long do you need?" 5 minutes, sir." Os looked at his damage reports. 2 ships were severely damaged. The swarm was pressing hard. 5 minutes might as well be 5 hours. "You have 3 minutes," Os said. "Not a second more." And led the final rescue wave. They went deep into the Morning Star, into sections that were barely holding together. They found people trapped in sealed rooms, in damaged compartments, in spaces so torn apart they seemed impossible to survive in. "Here," called out. She had found a group of 20 crew members huddled in a cargo bay. The door was jammed. "I need you." Came running. Together they forced the door open. The crew members poured out, scared but alive. "Everyone to the evacuation points," directed them. "Follow the emergency lights." She was checking for stragglers when she heard a sound that made her blood run cold. A child crying. Ran toward the sound. She found a small room, a crew quarter that had been sealed. Inside was a little girl, maybe 6 years old, crying next to her mother. The mother was not moving. "Hey, it's okay," said softly, kneeling down. She checked the mother, no pulse. She had died protecting her child. "What is your name?" The little girl whispered. I am going to get you out of here, okay?" She picked up the child and ran. Behind her she could hear metal tearing. The Morning Star was coming apart. On the bridge, Os made a decision he knew he would regret. "All ships, prepare to retreat. We have done all we can." "Sir, there are still shuttles on the Morning Star," his second officer said. "I know." Os felt something break inside him, "but we cannot save everyone." Then Jin's voice came through. "All shuttles launched. Repeat, all shuttles are clear. Crew count, Os demanded. 387 out of 400, sir. 13 people still aboard, just like at Outpost 47. Always 13 people they could not save. Morning Star reactor is critical, the tactical officer said. It will explode in 30 seconds. All ships emergency jump now, Os ordered. Sir, the reactor could take out that swarm heavy cruiser if we rig it properly, Hayes' voice came through. She was still on the Morning Star with 2 other scouts. Give us 20 seconds. Negative, evacuate immediately. Sir, this is too good an opportunity. That cruiser has been hammering the fleet all day. Os wanted to order them back. He wanted to save them, but he understood what they were offering. 3 lives for 1 cruiser, 3 lives to protect the 387 they had just saved. It was the kind of logic he had used his whole career, but now it felt wrong. Jin, Os said, talk to your people. Hey, come home, Jin said simply. That is an order. Sorry, sir, got to do this one. Os made his choice then, a choice that went against every instinct. I am going with them. Everyone on the bridge turned to stare at him. Commander, no, his second officer said. But Os was already moving. He ran to the shuttle bay, took the last remaining shuttle, and launched before anyone could stop him. He flew straight for the dying Morning Star. What are you doing? Hay asked over the radio. I am learning, Os said. Where are you? Reactor room, but sir. I am coming to help. We can do this faster together. He landed hard on the Morning Star's hull and cut his way inside. The ship was shaking itself apart. He ran through corridors he had never seen before, following Hayes' directions. He found her and Jin in the reactor room. Jin had disobeyed his own order and followed. They were setting charges around the reactor core, rigging it to blow at maximum force. Commander, what are you doing here? Jin demanded. Helping, Os said. He grabbed charges and started placing them. His hands worked faster than he knew they could. We do this together or not at all. They worked in silence, setting the final charges. The swarm cruiser was moving closer, about to destroy the Valiant crest. Done, Hay said. Timer set for 30 seconds. We need to move now. They ran. The ship trembled and groaned around them. Os's lungs burned. His muscles screamed. But he kept running with the 2 humans beside him. They reached the shuttle with 10 seconds to spare. Os launched immediately, pushing the engines to maximum. Behind them, the Morning Star exploded. The blast caught the swarm heavy cruiser directly. Both ships vanished in a ball of fire. All ships jump now, Os commanded. The 15 rescue ships jumped to safety. When they emerged, they were far from the battle zone, battered, damaged, but alive. Os sat in his pilot's seat, breathing hard. Jin and Hay sat behind him, equally exhausted. That was incredibly stupid, Os said. Yes, sir, they both replied. We almost died. Yes, sir. Os was quiet for a moment, then he said, thank you. They looked at him in surprise. For teaching me, Os explained. For showing me what bravery really means. Jin smiled. Anytime, Commander. They flew back to the Valiant crest together. On every ship in the rescue fleet, crews were celebrating. They had lost 13 people, but they had saved 387. For the first time, Os understood that sometimes the numbers did not matter. Sometimes you fought not because you could win, but because it was right. 6 months changed everything. After the rescue at 7, word spread across the coalition fleet. Captains who had retreated according to protocol began questioning those orders. Soldiers who had accepted losses started refusing to leave anyone behind. The human way of fighting became the new way of fighting. Os was promoted to Commodore. He now commanded 3 ships, the Valiant Crest, the Steadfast, and a new human vessel called the Determined. His crews were mixed species, but they all trained in what everyone called human tactics. The Coalition High Command noticed the change. Units that fought alongside humans had better survival rates, not worse. They won battles that should have been losses. They held ground that should have been surrendered. Fleet Admiral Al made it official. New protocols were issued fleet-wide. Acceptable losses was removed from tactical doctrine. Every life matters became the new standard. Now the entire coalition fleet gathered for the final assault. The Swarm Prime Hive, the heart of the enemy. If they could destroy the Hive Queen, the entire swarm would collapse. 200 ships assembled in formation. It was the largest military operation in coalition history. Humans made up only 3% of the forces, but they led most of the assault teams. Oz stood on the bridge of the Valiant Crest looking at his command staff. Was there, now captain, wearing command insignia. Na had been promoted to lieutenant, was chief medical officer. Jin was his tactical advisor. Hay ran the scout operations. "This is it," Oz said to them. "Everything we have fought for comes down to today." "No pressure then," Jin said with a slight smile. The fleet moved into position. The Swarm Prime Hive was a massive structure, bigger than most planets. It crawled with millions of swarm warriors. Around it, hundreds of swarm ships formed a defensive shell. "All ships, this is Admiral Al," the voice came through clear. "We have one objective, destroy the Hive Queen. All other targets are secondary. We fight together, we protect each other, and we do not leave anyone behind." Oz felt his scales tighten with emotion. A year ago, the Admiral would never have given such an order. Now it was standard procedure. "All ships attack." The fleet charged forward. The battle was immediate and brutal. Swarm ships met them head-on. Explosions lit up space like stars being born. Oz commanded his section, coordinating with ships around him, making sure everyone stayed covered. He had learned to think differently about tactics. It was not about preserving forces anymore. It was about achieving the mission while bringing everyone home. Sometimes those goals conflicted. When they did, you found a third option. "Breakthrough on the western flank," Na reported. "The assault teams are moving in." On his screen, Oz watched as 30 assault shuttles dove toward the hive structure. They were filled with soldiers from a dozen species, all trained by human instructors. Leading them was Captain Strike Force. The shuttles landed on the hive's surface. The soldiers poured out, fighting their way inside. The structure was massive, with tunnels that went on for kilometers. Somewhere deep inside was the Queen. Led his team through the tunnels. His squad was mixed. 3 humans, 2, 4 avians, and 1 massive warrior. They moved as one unit, covering each other, trusting each other. "Contact ahead," Hay reported from the front. She was scouting the path. Swarm warriors poured out of side tunnels. The squad opened fire, holding their position. The warrior charged forward with a roar, his heavy armor absorbing attacks. The avians provided cover from above, using their wings to stay mobile. They used their speed to flank the enemy. And the humans did what humans always did. They stood in the most dangerous positions, drawing fire away from their teammates, making sure everyone else stayed alive. "We are taking heavy casualties across the fleet," Jin reported to Oz, "but we are pushing forward." "Keep going," Oz said. "We are almost there." Inside the hive's team reached a massive chamber. At its center was the Queen, enormous and terrible. She was surrounded by her royal guard, the biggest and most dangerous swarm warriors. "All teams, this is Captain. We have found the Queen. Beginning assault." "Negative, Captain," Admiral Al's voice came through. "You have 30 warriors in that room. Pull back and we will hit it from orbit." Looked at his team. They had lost people getting here. Good people, friends. If they retreated, those sacrifices would be wasted. "Admiral, orbital strike will take 10 minutes to coordinate. The swarm will move the Queen by then. We need to do this now." There was silence on the line. Then the admiral spoke. "Then make it count, Captain." Turned to his squad. "Everyone ready?" They nodded. They knew the odds. 11 soldiers against 30 royal guard and a hive queen. It was suicide. But they had learned from humans. Sometimes you fight not because you will win, but because you must. "For those who fell," said quietly. "For those who fell," his squad repeated. They charged. The battle was chaos. Stayed back, shooting while treating wounded squad members. Nu's heavy weapon tore through Royal Guard warriors. Hay moved like wind, distracting and dodging. The warrior went straight for the queen, his massive fists hammering her armor. Fought his way to the queen's side. She was huge, towering over him. One of her claws caught him and threw him across the chamber. He hit the wall hard. Something broke inside him. Screamed. She ran toward him, firing at anything that got close. Tried to stand, but his legs would not work. He looked down and saw blood, too much blood. He was dying. But he still had his weapon. He raised it with shaking hands and aimed at the queen's head. His vision was blurring. He could barely see. "A little help here would be nice," he gasped into his radio. The Valiant Crest came screaming out of orbit. Os had brought his entire squadron low, breaking every safety protocol, risking everything. His ships opened fire on the hive structure directly above the queen's chamber. The ceiling exploded. Debris rained down. The queen shrieked as metal and stone crashed onto her. No use the distraction. She emptied her entire weapon into the queen's head at point-blank range. The massive creature stumbled, wounded but not dead. Hay threw every grenade she had. The avians dive-bombed from above. The warrior grabbed one of the queen's legs and pulled with all his strength. And reached. She pressed her hands against his wounds, trying to stop the bleeding, crying and working at the same time. "Stay with me," she begged. "Please stay with me." "I am trying," whispered, "really trying." The queen fell. All the attacks together, all the different species working as one, brought her down. When she hit the ground, her royal guard collapsed too. Throughout the hive, throughout the entire swarm network, warriors stopped moving. The hive mind was dead. On his bridge, Os watched as the swarm fleet simply drifted to a stop. Without the queen, they were nothing. The battle was over. "We won," someone whispered. Then louder, "We won." The celebration spread across the fleet. 200 ships, thousands of soldiers, all cheering at once. But in the queen's chamber was still trying to save. His breathing was shallow. His eyes were closing. "Medical team, emergency evacuation," shouted into her radio. "Captain is critical." They got him to the shuttle, worked on him the entire flight back, refusing to stop, refusing to let him die. Os met them in the medical bay. He watched as the doctors took over, as they fought to save one human soldier who had just helped save the galaxy. It took 3 hours. When the doctors finally emerged, they looked exhausted. "He will live," the head doctor said, but it was close, very close. Collapsed against a wall, finally letting herself cry. The war ended that day. With the hive queen dead, the swarm fell apart. The coalition began the long work of reclaiming their territory, of rebuilding what was lost, of mourning those who fell. 3 months later, a ceremony was held at coalition headquarters. It was the biggest gathering of military personnel in history. Every species was represented. Fleet Admiral Al spoke to the assembled crowd. She talked about the war, about the sacrifices, about the lessons learned. Then she called Os to the stage. "Commodore Os has been selected to speak today," the admiral said. "He represents all of us who learned something important during this war." Os approached the podium. He looked out at the crowd. He saw there, still recovering but standing tall, stood beside him. Nun, Jin, and Hay were in the front row. Thousands of others filled the hall. "I spent 20 years as a soldier before humans joined the coalition," Os began. His voice was strong and clear. In those 20 years, I learned about tactics, about strategy, about calculated risk. I learned to accept losses. I learned to retreat when the odds were poor. I learned to value my own survival above all else. He paused. I was wrong. The hall was silent. The humans taught me something different. They taught me that true bravery is not about calculations or odds. It is not about fighting only when you know you will win. True bravery is about standing up when someone needs you, regardless of the cost. He looked directly at the human soldiers in the audience. They taught us that some things are worth fighting for, even when the fight seems impossible. That protecting each other is more important than protecting ourselves. That leaving no one behind is not just a saying, but a way of life. His voice grew stronger. Human soldiers make up only 3% of our forces, but they have changed 100% of how we fight, not because they are stronger or faster or smarter, but because they have something we had forgotten. They have each other, and they taught us to have each other too. The hall erupted in applause. It started with the human section but spread quickly. Soon everyone was standing, clapping, cheering. Os waited for the noise to fade. I was there when Private sacrificed himself to save civilians. I was there when Sergeant Na held the line alone. I was there when Captain charged a hive queen against impossible odds. These humans and thousands like them did not just fight for the coalition. They showed us what the coalition should be. He stepped back from the podium. The war is over. We won. But we did not win because we had better weapons or more ships. We won because we learned to fight for each other. That is the human gift. That is what they taught us. The ceremony continued for hours. Medals were given. Speeches were made. But what Os said that day became famous across the galaxy. Years later, when new recruits joined the coalition military, they learned about human tactics and human courage. They learned about the soldiers who changed everything. They learned that bravery was not about being fearless. It was about choosing to act despite fear, because others needed you to act. Os retired eventually, but he never forgot his lessons. He never forgot sacrifice, or courage, or the moment he decided to turn his ship around and go back for people who needed him. He had spent years believing that true bravery meant nothing. It was just a word, an empty concept that got soldiers killed. But the humans taught him differently. They taught him that true bravery meant everything. And he carried that lesson for the rest of his life.